questions. This is Emily Sewell. She was an ag teacher. She's now over at OSU working on her master's / PhD, hopefully.
If we can make it there.
And we'll talk a little bit about Ag Experience Tracker and a few other things for us. All right? All you, Emily.
Perfect. So I actually have to first give credit to, I don't know if you guys have seen this meme, but one of my former students who graduated like back in 2016 sent it to me this fall whenever it came about after Bernie, obviously, with his list. And so I thought it was really funny because it was she was a freshman when we started using AET. So my first year teaching, we were the first cohort to learn AET as a class at OSU. And then whenever I became a teacher, that was that first year that we decided, hey, we're all adopting AET, all of the freshmen have to be on it. And so she was in that first group, so then 4 years, and then she's been in college. She's graduating this next year. So she's obviously been out of it for a long time, and she still has nightmares about AET maybe. So I incorporated this whenever we taught AET this spring to the OSU students, and I thought it was pretty funny. So I tried to pull up some of your guys' answers, but they didn't. But kind of just to get an idea of what we're going to be doing today. So one, I don't have the website for the Ag Experience Tracker isn't completely ready yet. We ran it this spring, and it had quite a few problems. We're using that for my thesis. And so we're revamping it, hopefully to have it fully ready to release this fall. So then my hope is that you'll be able to use it with your students, and hopefully it'll make that process easier, and hopefully it'll just be better than it was this spring is also the hope. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite things in AET, and I'll ask you guys in a minute, like, how experienced you feel in AET, because some of my favorite things, you might be like, I already used that and I don't want to know about it, so I'll just skip through those. And then we're going to talk about the Ag Career Experiences. Basically what it is, it's an online platform. It's assignments that allow your students to have a foundational SAE for whatever that might be. So assignment driven, so you'll be able to give them either hard copies or you'll be able to give them the digital version, which we'll upload on the website, so you'll just be able to click on it and they'll be able to see them. And then the takeaway for why we're doing this workshop. What are you doing? Oh, you got the webinar plan? Yeah. I told you, we could take a poll. If you guys wanted to watch the webinar instead, we could. Yes. And if you want to give, if you'll give one to everyone, that would be awesome, Josh.
I got you.
Maybe not, I think the top one I might have notes on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different color. Okay. So we can, if you guys really wanted, we can abort this and go to the webinar. Hopefully, I guess there'll be good information that they share. So that's the takeaway, blending these two resources together to give you something that's useful in your classroom is my hope. And that is why I told the OSU staff that I would work on it. I was like, I think there's buy-in in this somewhere. So first things first, do any of you feel confident using AET? You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but is there anyone that feels really confident in their AET experience? Good, so maybe all of my little AET things will be helpful for the majority of you at least. Then raise your hand if you use a variety of resources. So maybe it's the calendar, maybe it's the budget, maybe it's the dues tracker, I don't know. Anyone? Variety of those uses? Okay. Okay, perfect. Which ones do you use?
I like the budget at the beginning of the year,
okay,
and then I forget about it.
Understandable.
But the text feature, I use that all year. That's great.
By far, hands down, my favorite.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, then how many of you only use it to ensure that your state degrees and proficiencies and what other apps are? Like maybe you're the ag teacher that it's like, okay, it's January. Everyone come in. We're going to get your record books all together because you have 21 days before your degree check, and you're going to make sure all their records are good. And the only, I guess, forcefulness now on that is if you're going to have a state star candidate, you have to have their books done a year in advance. Aside from that, you genuinely can do one's books previously. But I think we can all agree whenever they forced us into AET, they forced us in with good intent to actually use it and make our lives easier instead of how we maybe use it. Would we agree with that? Yeah, maybe? Okay. So if your, raise your hand if your SAE experience is genuinely exceeding 75% every year. And can you guys see this maybe? Is it genuinely exceeding? Or do you have to go in whenever that due date is and say what it is, or go in and make sure all those kids have experiences? So if it's the demise of your existence, you hate having to meet the 75% because you hate AET, is that you? No one? You don't hate it. Okay, that's good. You hate it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So, first things first, some of my favorite, and I included some of these things for how I used to teach it to my 8th graders and freshmen. And then I also used it to teach the pre-service teachers this last spring. And so I had a little slideshow that I put together that it's lots of screenshots and button pushes. So if you wanted that, I could also give you that after this session. So if you wanted to use it, it'll walk you through. This one's a little bit modified, but I can give you the other one that'll literally walk you through. So it's like, okay, everyone go to AET, log in. This is where you click, blah, blah, blah. So first, with AET accounts, my favorite resource is the messenger system. How many of you guys have used the messenger system? My former teaching partner, poor Chip, I used it like it was going out of style, and I think he tried once after I left, and he was like, I'm done. He sent one message to 4 kids and was like, screw this, I'm never doing this again. I haven't talked to him about it, but I think that's what he did. So the AET messenger system is my favorite. Do you use Remind 101 or any of those other resources? And Remind 101, are they now charging you on Remind 101? I remember getting an email. Yeah, you have to upgrade it and use. So this is completely free. And the beauty of it, I think, yes, I pulled it up, is you write your message here, but you can choose. So if at the beginning of the school year, whenever you have all your students go and create their accounts in AET, you can make sure that they upload their parent information, their cell phone number, all of those aspects. And now there's even a new resource that wasn't there. I think it's brand new this year maybe, the mentor resource. So you can add other people if someone else is keeping their life in line. But so you can add those on their profile, and then you just pull that information. So you can send it to all students, and then you can choose if you want the students' text messages, their emails, the AET message. Sometimes I just do that just for a good, documentation that it was sent, because it's technology, and so sometimes kids will get it. Sometimes mine would get it 4 hours after I sent it, so it just kind of depended. So sometimes I would just select the AET message just for that record of knowing I sent it and where it was at. But then you can add parents and parents by email. And then you can make groups, which I never really did, so I didn't include that. But so you can make those groups. And I think that is a new feature. Would you know, using the messenger system?
It's been on there for a couple of years.
Okay.
I do my CE teams in there.
Okay.
So if my lane judging kids are not going to a contest tomorrow, I can text them individually and then text my science kids separate and things like that. My officer team also has a group on there. So it's really neat, and that saves me from having to have a whole bunch of group texts on my phone.
And if someone has an Android instead of an iPhone,
yes,
all those annoying aspects.
And
so
Wi-Fi versus
yeah. I would highly recommend it. If you haven't used the messenger system, definitely play with it. You do just have to make sure, part of, I think, Chip's battle was making sure all the students were selected, or being able to go select. So making sure you get all of them here. And as you select them, it'll populate. So you can go through and do a quick check and make sure, did I have this person in this class, and just check by classes, maybe on one person.
You can also do it by teacher. If you're in a teacher program, if I want to send something to just my class instead of my teaching partners,
you can scroll. Yeah, you can scroll on this, and there's more options to select it like that. It's a huge resource. Highly recommend it. It's one of the best things AET has to offer.
And the kids can't text you back on that.
Yeah.
So that's even
no
better.
Stupid questions. No, well, I can't, blah, 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 blah. Just, this is the information. And you can send it to their parents, and they don't question, they know, you don't have to worry if they told their parents. It's great. Okay, so this is how I used to introduce my kids. So first, second day of class or whatever, whenever I would introduce them to AET, I'm a big Garth Brooks fan, so I incorporated all these lyrics and then Yoga Whippy. And so I asked them what all these have in common, and then put this. So basically, it's just a little, nugget or whatever, a little motivational piece to say, hey, your involvement in FFA is important. You're not just in this class, you're in FFA, all of these aspects you guys all say on those things too. But this was just my way, so I wanted to incorporate it so you saw it. And the other aspect is, and we talked about this last week during AET Academy, a big aspect for me of what I always did is like I pay my due, so into OAETA, all of those things, and so I would talk about my membership and why it was important to me as an ag teacher. It's like, I'm doing this, I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not doing, so I just made it a whole cell on we're all in this together in these different organizations. And so I would do that little piece, and then I'd give them a little rundown of the 3-circle model and what it's about, and then I just hit them real quick with, so you guys are all getting started with AET today, and you all are going to create your account, and I've always obviously gone in and put their names in. And so then I teach them how to log in, where to go to the website. That's what it'll look like when you do the student login. And then I would have a mock-up of a former FFA member with OK0378. And so it would be their specific, obviously this one is for our OSU account specific, so it's what I used whenever I taught the pre-service teachers. And so then I would just walk them through, like, okay, you've logged in, so now go to your profile. And, oh, I didn't get that arrow fixed. So it would be profile, and then this page, and then this arrow would come up. And so when we go here, I just screenshotted that, and I would say, okay, go record your school ag class. And then I would tell them about how you can manage your resume. I have some students, and I think the resume piece is if your students are motivated to go in there and put stuff in, it makes their life easier in the long run. They can put everything under the sun, and then they can have their regular resume, or they can generate it through AET, or they can go to National FFA and generate it there. But my sell on this was, this is your mass runner resume. So this is everything from your sports to your personal life, whatever. This is your place that houses everything you've done, and then this is what you can pull from to make your specific resumes for whatever you're doing. And so the other one is pulling in judging card results. They'll automatically populate into their resume, and that's really handy. Have any of you guys ever used the resume resource? Have you seen that on AET? Am I hitting this really fast? Yes, maybe. Perfect. And so then when you use that, it then populates into their state degree resume. So if they start using this, and they start as 8th graders, freshmen, putting in whatever they did from running track to showing goats to whatever that might be, all of that can then populate into that state degree application. So in turn, or I guess portfolio, makes your life a little bit easier. So the judging card results, this is an example of one of my former students that really, I told them about it and I pushed it, and then homegirl took it to heart, and she really does, as soon as something happens, she goes and enters it into AET, and she has a good running list. So whenever she does do applications this next year, she'll be able to go and pull and have all of those things already pre-populated. And if you guys did the AET resume for the state degree like I did, I was like, you don't have to have everything in there. Like, this doesn't have to be, like, you just go pull what you want. What do you want to see in 30 years that have been your FFA things? And I don't care if it's massive. Well, if it's already done and they have all their stuff, then they have a really conclusive resume to work with. Okay, have I gone over that fast? Is that overwhelming? Before I move on. Okay, perfect. This is the judging card piece. So as you look at this, they can then write in their objectives and their references, and you just click on those different pieces, and you can see if they put their name and information in correctly whenever they went to a contest, they can pull it real easily. So then some other favorite little pieces is entering your FFA offices and your committees, which is great because if you use your chapter website, like the OSU website for some reason doesn't work, it sends an error message. At Woodward, we used it a lot, and Chip and Tyler are still using it a lot. So having this aspect, it automatically, like that's what it looks like on their side, but then it automatically populates to your AET chapter website. So how we had ours is we had our Woodward Public Schools website. It had a link to our AET website. And so then people can automatically click. They can see who's on what committees, who's in what officer positions. And it just makes, you don't have to go and create anything. It's just them keeping good records and populating it in. So it's one of those things that makes your life easier if they are putting in their stuff on the front end. So if you have some of those resources, a PowerPoint that if you are not techie on PowerPoint with the arrows and all those animations, and you wanted to steal mine, you definitely could and then modify it to what you would want. So that's what it would look like on your chapter website. if it went. Ours isn't public to the public, but we can see it on the advisor side. It's still weird, but that's what it'll look like for you guys. And then it'll just list them right up there. Okay, so some other pieces that are fun that I haven't used but is fairly new is the AET access for parents and mentors. So you can have your students go in and enter that information. Have any of you guys used that before? Yes, no, maybe? I think it's fairly new. But they can go in, click on that, and then they can put who they want. So maybe if grandma really takes care of them a lot and they want grandma to have that access, they can put that information in, and then you have it for whatever you might need it for. The other one, that's how you add the mentor. The other one is this survey of education and career path. And so I included that on here because as you're looking and tracking, one, I think it would be cool for research aspects now that research has become my brain of thought for everything. But you can then track and they can see where they've come. And so it asks them some different questions. I don't think I did. No, I did. I did a screenshot. So you can ask them to plan, like, what's your educational plan? What do you want to do? And have them think ahead. And it's an already assignment kind of built in that you can then run with. So then they can answer those questions. And so as I connect this with the ag career experiences, as you're looking and getting their profile and them set up in AET to use these resources, then you can move into that foundational SAE and in turn get your percentage in AET genuinely up to where you want it and then using it. Okay, am I going too fast on that? And Tulsa's doing great things. Okay, so the next resource, how many of you use the calendar?
Is there a way to link your Google Calendar to this?
Yes, it kind of sucks, and I always have to remember,
Well,
you have to,
You already told me.
I know, you have to do it in here, and then it links to your Google Calendar, and then if you want to share your Google Calendar with your school calendar,
I mean, that's my problem is school
Yeah.
calendar.
to try, I would have to go and like purposely copy. Surely there's an easier way, and I just didn't find the right resources, but you can, I think it's under the Manage Your Chapter website, and you go and get the iCal or whatever, and then you just copy that into your Google Calendar. That part's pretty easy to get it into a Google Calendar. And honestly, why couldn't, I still don't know if it would populate to your school calendar. I think there's got to be an easier way to merge.
I wish that it would let you take your Google Calendar, which I've already done, and put it on that, so I don't have to go back
Yeah.
and refill out.
And there might be a way, but I am not familiar with that
I
way.
think it should be easy to link that.
And that's the other.
And I think also, I know the Ewell crew that runs AET, like, I know we've done things with them with their speech contest. There's a really strong chance that if you were to make that proposal, I mean, they're pretty sneaky.
They might.
They might be able to build a link.
So just, ask AET
I mean,
that
there's
question.
so many schools going to Google
Oh,
Calendar
yeah.
and linking
Yeah.
that.
And there may be a way to do it, but I would certainly reach out to Clay and Russell.
Yeah.
Clay and Russell.
Well, you can just, on the side over there, whenever it says ask AET a question,
And they're fast, way fast.
the other day, so for the website, we're going to use your chapter codes for you to like select what chapter you're part of. And so I emailed AET and I was like, all right, did ask the question. And I had it within 5 minutes, like the full list of Oklahoma chapter codes, which was kind of nifty. So I would say, yeah, they're super quick. So obviously the main benefit of the calendar, you guys have used it, but your students, do you put it in the calendar and then you have them do participant journal entries?
So,
And so then those participant journal entries populate into your AET or into your applications?
I would like for it to do that, yes, but it's staying caught up.
That's fair. And so with, okay, this is another aspect, but if you put them in, if you make your officers all have access to AET, you can give them access to the meeting manager, whatever, that little piece. And then you could also split it up and say, like, these are our activities. You need to go enter this one, and this one. Depending on how self-sufficient they are, I guess you could have some, depending on how controlling, I guess you are. Definitely impacts
You're
that.
saying they could go to the calendar, click on the link,
And they
do
can
their
create
journal
it.
entry right there.
Yeah.
And then it is like their activity on
Yeah.
there.
So if you break them up, OSU is going to do some PD. We got confirmed yesterday. We're really excited about it. It's been kind of a process. But one of my counterparts is on the National Chapter Committee, and so she's going to do a workshop on the National Chapter. And most of that is going to be doing the National Chapter through AET and how to use your students, so how your students can have that access, create those experiences, write it up. And if they're writing it all in the calendar, if they're creating whatever that activity is on that date, and then they enter that information, which we'll see in a second, then you can then just populate that into your National Chapter application as well. So you don't have to be
And
multiple
that's
typing.
good. I mean, I understand the thought
Yeah.
process that the students need to be doing that, but in reality, if you're really in the hunt trying to do that, your students aren't touching that.
Not necessarily. She would beg to differ. And she's from Louisiana. They've had some national model of innovation winners and finalists. And hers really was, her kids really did write it, and she very much empowered them. Now, if we're going to talk about Woodward, my last year there, they were going to, they went in and created the experiences and wrote it and had the pieces. And yes,
I feel
they
like
changed a
it'd
lot.
just be more work to go back and try to redirect them to where you
Maybe.
need to go, and then whatever they would write, you're like, nah,
That
nah,
doesn't
so
work.
I need to go back and rewrite.
There is some of that piece. But I think,
With kids, it depends on what the kids got.
yeah, definitely so. And so if you have some that are,
Me, I don't
and
have
if you
people
can give them
that are
an,
capable of doing it.
and if you can give them an old application to run with, to give them an idea of what to write, and a lot of those activities that might repeat themselves, they can have that aspect, but there is a lot of, obviously, editing, fixing, all of those pieces. So with the calendar, using that, how they find it, they have access. Once you add them, it then pops up like this on that little piece, so they can have the meeting manager. They just click, fill out, and then it pops up. And then they can fill out, these are those pieces that go into your National Chapter application. The only thing that when we gave our officers access, that was my biggest pain in the butt, was they would often think they recorded their participant journal entry, and they would edit the event or whatever that might be, which was rather annoying. So making sure they click on the right version of participant journal entry. So students without access, it just looks like that. It's really simple. Students with access, it has it up there. So they have to then click in a different spot, and they have to be using their brain enough to click on it. So when it comes to your students having the access to do that on a way that makes sense, it's a little bit annoying. So they can then also send messages. So if you want your officers to send out, hey, this is a reminder for our chapter meeting this date, once you give them access, they can then do those things. And so that does, if you do have officers that are capable, empowered human beings and not ones that are just serving on the officer team and don't really have a desire to help you in those aspects, or you're a little bit of a control freak like me, then you might have some struggles letting go of that aspect, but they can do that, and so that is nice. Then they can prepare the agenda, they can take roll, and they can take minutes. And so then all of your meeting agendas, we did all of our meeting agendas through here the past, my last few years at Woodward. Once we had this resource, it was put in there. Were there sometimes that I went in and put more of the agenda in? Yes, because they may or may not. But
Where do you get this? Oh, sorry.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Where do you get this access at?
when you go, I should have screenshotted that piece. It's under the advisor side. Yeah. Once you, I think it's probably under, it might be under accounts. It might be under tracker. But you can go in and click who has access. And so if you just go click your officers, then your officers all have that access.
So probably the best way to start students we're talking about into working up to a national chapter and doing that stuff
Yeah.
is to give them an agenda deal that it don't really matter if they mess it up, or I mean it won't take much to edit that if
Yeah.
you need to. Then you can build that expectation then to move over.
Yes, because you do not have to, if they write it in here, you do not have to copy that into your actual application.
Well, I just meant just for them to practice,
Yeah.
knowing what your expectation is.
They can then see it with those goals, outcomes, writing it, deadlines. The budget piece, I never use that with Some of those you're not going to use, but some of them, their exact population. If you really are empowering your students to go in and completely plan the National Chapter app and they're in charge of budget and all this stuff, then they can use those other resources. I never did, but if you were really empowering, you definitely could. Does that answer that question?
Still supposed to teach class. Just thought I'd throw that out.
You're just living the best life you are. That's it. Yeah. So this one, how we broke it up, so I have two different PowerPoints. I have the PowerPoints that gets my kids into AET, and then I have this PowerPoint that I use to teach the pre-service teachers, because I never taught my students like this. It was just very much, okay, you have access, which is also probably why I had problems with clicking on the wrong thing of when they were. So this is a different PowerPoint that could incorporate that if you wanted to walk your kids through it or seeing those different aspects, that could be different. I just blended them together. Okay, so that's the meeting agenda and those aspects. They can take roll. I always took roll on AET at chapter meetings. One, it just goes to the local activities, but two, we very much ran our point system off of their AET participant journal entries. And so that was one way of, you have a deadline. If your activity wasn't in there, I would then print the report of who's done a participant journal entry, and that's who got points for that activity. And if you didn't have it, you didn't get points. I'm a little bit of a bleeding heart, so I would then post them and be like, hey, you don't have it done, so go back and do it. So depending on how much effort you want to put into that, but you could just say, this is your deadline, you have to have a participant journal entry, and then you have records of who did what, depending on how you run your point system and where you do it. If you do it on one of the forms, or I had an Excel, however that works for you, you could do a variety of ways. But then putting in,
15 minutes.
okay, good. However you do those, keeping track of where they go to activities. If you're keeping track on it on here, if you're making them enter it on your way home from whatever contest, and you're like, hey, everyone go to AET on your phones, record your participant journal entry, then it's done, and you're not trying to catch up when they're a senior. Did you hit your 20 activities? What did you go to? They already have them entered, and they're populated into their state degree. Did I go through that fast? Is this overwhelming? Is anyone hating AET even anymore?
ID card?
No, but Emily did in Louisiana. They bought a scanner and they printed off the QR codes.
Just wonder if I could keep track of everything.
They did not. They printed them all off and put them in a
We
binder.
had a scanner.
You
Yeah.
know, it's easy.
Do you put them in a binder, or do they have to bring their
We had a
code?
binder, we printed their own, we printed every single kid, because it lets you do it as like 9 per page, and you just flip to that kid, scan it.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
have them do that as like they're coming into a chapter meeting or something?
Usually we'd have like an officer there doing it.
That's
So,
pretty cool.
Okay.
That would be
I would say that would be handy as compared to typing in their names. But
So do you get a report of that?
yeah, it all goes on to AET where you can access it on the teacher site
How quickly can you get that?
immediately.
yeah,
Okay.
it's on that take roll piece.
Because we have our chapter meetings during school, and I have to report who's there for
Because
attendance.
those, like,
Oh,
those
yeah.
scanners are usually USB driven,
Yeah.
where you can get one's art, and so if you have your computer and you pop it in there, and it powers it, plus it plugs right into AET. You have to have AET open in order for it to work. Let me back up. So
Okay.
it does give you an immediate response. It's really nice.
Okay, so on this oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Go.
Ask your question.
No, go ahead. Are we going, I don't know where we're going, but I'm just gonna ask you if we're gonna go here. Is there a way to pull up, like, okay, so you say Mondays, that's the day we're going to go in there, they're gonna put in records, they're gonna make journal entries. Is there a way where you pull that up and it's easy to see, yes, little Johnny did his, and this is what he did. And Susie didn't do crap, and then you just go through there and grade, and it's easy.
I don't have that in here, but yes, you can. When you go to the reports, I can pull that up in a minute. I can click through the rest of these and we
But
can pull
like,
that
to
up.
me, like, I've seen it on a report,
Uh-huh.
but it never, I don't think it really detailed out what that kid did. And maybe I'm going to the wrong one, huh?
They just said like last login day.
Yeah, I mean, and it might have said, yeah, journal entry was done, but you would have to actually go into that kid's account to see what they wrote.
Make sure that it's.
I think.
It takes.
Mm.
Yeah, that's it. I wish that there was,
Yeah.
I mean, I know it'd be a million, well, I guess if you made it per class, it wouldn't be that
I
long
think there is a
file.
way to limit, like, I only want to see today, and you
Yeah.
see their genuine entries, but I would have to play with it for a minute to.
I got it pulled up.
You can go under reports, and then there's student detail. Student detail reports go under journal list, put it in the date, and it'll tell you everything.
Even,
Yeah,
not
but
just
from
journal,
the
but
day they
also the
enter?
financial entries?
Oh, there's another tab that you can go into that says financial transaction list, and then placement
It'll
paycheck
just tell
list.
you either.
See, that's what I hate though, is you gotta go into 1,000 different places.
You've got to know where you're going,
Yes.
or you've got to have a few minutes to go and search for it.
They can
Yeah.
have a summary of what that kid did that day, whether he did a transaction with money or a journal entry or an
Yeah.
activity, to put it all.
Is there a way
Hey,
to pull
this
all of
kid
them?
did this, this, and this.
You have to,
Do you have to have them separated by financial and journal?
yeah.
Yeah, you have to go.
But I
You
mean,
just don't know what you're doing.
yeah, that's all right. But I mean, it looks so pretty.
It looks so pretty. Look at those colors. Man, they're great. So I think, can I do anything to help it not be as overwhelming? No. Okay.
The struggle comes with time.
Yeah.
I mean, how much time do we need to spend here versus what we're trying to teach in the classroom?
Yeah.
Versus the livestock and SAE projects. I mean, that's where
And
snafu comes.
I would say on this aspect, these are a lot of my favorite resources that I've used. And so figuring out where they best fit for you on that time aspect, because I was fortunate that I had some kids that really ran with the resume or really ran with entering stuff. But getting all of them in there, those are more extra AET aspects. Once we get to the ag experiences, which is pretty similar, so these worksheets, this is solely just going to give you a foundational SAE that they can then go and journal throughout that experience, and then you have your participation taken care of. And then when you do have those other kids that are diving into more intense CDE or SAEs and getting more wanting to get a state degree, and so this more so covers all of your children, and then you can devote some of that more time to, hey, this kid's really working on an SAE, this kid's really working on an SAE, but all of them have something that's of value. Some are just diving in more time than others, if that makes sense. Okay, so now that those aspects, like I said, those are just some of my favorite tricks, some of my favorite things that I used a lot, how we used them for our point system, how we use them for keeping track of them populating into applications. And if you wanted, I know there's some more AET workshops going on. If they're the same way they were a couple years ago, I hated them. But I would say that definitely there's probably a need for some more intentional, slow-paced AET tricks of like, how do you really implement this into real life? Would you guys agree?
Just a step format, that's a lot.
Yeah, actually worksheets that aren't freaking confusing. Yeah.
Like starting a SAE, like something you can actually give the kid.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll transition. Okay, so the ag career experiences, these worksheets that I gave you, so there are currently 8 experiences or 8 career pathways ready to go. And so this is the ag education experience number 1. So there are 5 experiences per pathway. I would not like stake my claim on this entirely, because there are pieces in this that still need to be revised. The history of this program goes back to like not long after I graduated from undergrad. And so I put in a lot of work of revamping it to make it useful, but we're still in that revamp page. So what we want to release in the fall, we want to be as close to perfect, but as you guys look through these, there are some pieces that I think are overwhelming that you're going to be like, that assignment, I don't want to do that with my kids. And so some of those aspects we still have work on. So as you're reading through these, if there are things that you were like, you look at it or you take it home and you're like, this sucks, like my kids aren't going to do this, let me know that and I can revamp it too. Because like I said, there are 5 experiences for 8 pathways. We're working on getting the 9th experience. There was a grad student that left that didn't get it done, so we've got to, if anyone has any environmental science experience, that would be helpful because that's the pathway. But it's based off the national pathways. So the newest addition to these is it used to have the old system of the yellow books of how you recorded your experiences. Instead, I made one that this is how, hey, you're going to pull up this website and you're going to do this, and then you're going to pull up this new browser into AET, and you're going to enter what you're doing into AET, and so then you have a pathway, and as they, or an experience in AET, and as they go through it, they then journal. It tells them in that second page where to go to the journal so they can go back and journal that experience, and on every page it says, now go to AET and journal. And on these, on the online format, every time it says the AET, it's a link to AET. And so they literally click it and then it pulls up a new browser so they have AET access. So first, what is it? It's an online platform that was created a long time ago with this great idea of all these awesome things. The OSU was going to do this really cool project. And then some people left and it got dropped, and that's like literally on year 6. And so whenever I came in, they thought, oh, this will be great. This will be your project. And so sure enough, it is, and I'm going to use it for my thesis and my dissertation, hopefully. So the information that we take from this is just gaining the student. So there's no test associated with it. Really testing like, did you learn this? It's just a perceived, you, student A, SAP, did you, like, how knowledgeable do you feel clicking on this experience and going to it? Like, you're interested in ag education and maybe you're interested in photography because the ag education one is a little bit of an ag-com, ag-ed mix. So maybe you want to do the photography one. How knowledgeable about photography are you right now before you start this experience? And then at the end, it's like, how knowledgeable are you now? So it's 4 basic questions. That's all it's asking. Am I now on my time? I got 5 minutes. So these packets, I tried to guide them with AET. So this is the newest revamp of what we want these packets to look like to fully align with AET. So hopefully your students, you can print off these packets and give them hard copies, but they are already embedded into the website. So they can have the website open with this worksheet and be able to say like, okay, I've started this experience. It says now go to AET. And also, as I say all this in this short version, I'm doing a workshop at summer conference. I know we don't do workshops at summer conference, but if you want to come hang out with me during summer conference, I'm doing a workshop that will be more in depth, just this website, because the website will be ready then. Right now it's not, so it didn't really work. So the first page takes them to the Explorer where they can like click on careers. I didn't take that out just because we decided to leave it, but this gives them the login of how you go to AET. And so then as you click on the new experience, hopefully it literally just walks them through and makes your life simpler of not having to do a PowerPoint or any of that. It can just be, okay, you've created your profile, you filled out this information. Okay, so your next project is going to be the Ag Career Experiences. You're going to go and create your profile in that and then walk through whichever one you see fit. So they can choose any of the 9 pathways. I put in there, it is a research project, so there are consent forms that I haven't quite figured out the best way to do that. In the spring when we piloted it, I emailed everyone the consent forms and the kids had to sign them. It was an opt-out for parents, so they didn't have to sign them. And then I collect those. My hope is that I'm just going to be able to do a question that says, like, I understand that OSU is going to use my email address to track this data. But so the consent forms are the major, I think, give from you guys. But the take from you guys is you'll be able to just give them this worksheet, this website, and they can run with it and create the experience. So the surveys are linked through the account, so it's not like you're having to toggle back and forth, which was the case on the old one. But that's the hope. So hopefully there's a give from you guys of those students are going to have to consent to giving us information of some sort just because we do collect it. But then hopefully it'll be easy for you guys to say, here you go. So this is what it looks like. They'll be able to choose agribusiness systems, animal science, whatever that might be. Once they click on that, all of the experiences will pop up. So it'll say the photography, the shutterbug, whatever. It'll say teaching ag, like if they want to do a teach ag experience. If they wanted to do a horticulture plant science experiment or experience, then that one's on there. And these packets will be digitally showing up for them to then click on. And then, like I said, all those links are live. So once they have that pulled up in the browser, they can just click and it takes them where they need to go. Is that overwhelming in itself? Okay. Before we go there. So with that being said, my hope is if you guys want to look through this and see what these look like, the idea is genuinely it creates those experiences for your students. You don't have to say, oh, pick a topic, go write some journal entries. This literally gives them assignments that you can do. As Dr. Robinson said, it's not quite point and play like maybe AEC or CEV is, or ICEV, but it does give them a worksheet to follow. They can then turn these assignments into you, and if they complete them, you can give them credit and you have a grade in your grade book. And they'll have an experience in AET that they can track and run with at their own pace. So if they really want to dive into it, they can. If they only want to halfway dive into it, they can. And then you have that resource in it. You have that experience in AET that has journal entries that hopefully gives them a more genuine SAE to run with, especially for those students. And this is deemed at not your students who have ag backgrounds that have an SAE that's already driven that they come in with. This is your new students that are trying to figure out what they might like, that it's really going to dive, but all of them can do it, and maybe they'll find something new. Does it seem helpful? Well, you can tell me, I guess. Okay, if you'll scan this QR code, and then tell me what you think. If it was overwhelming in aspects, tell me that. The workshop for summer conference will just be this, and we'll walk through the website. And so that way you'll be able to then take it and say, okay, now I feel confident going and doing this, if that makes sense.